The rain fell in a soft, relentless drizzle over Seattle, the kind that clung to your skin and blurred the edges of the world. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse office, I watched the city shimmer under a gray veil, the Space Needle piercing the clouds like a quiet promise. My name is Emily Harper, 35 years old, and I've built something extraordinary, a chain of boutique hotels that redefine luxury, with the Starlight Hotel as my crown jewel. But last week, a single text message from my Aunt Evelyn cracked open a wound I thought I'd sealed shut years ago. "Emily dear," it read, "the reunion is for celebrating Harper's success. Given your choices, it's best you sit this one out. No failures allowed, you understand." The words stung like salt on raw skin, each syllable a reminder of the family I'd never been enough for. They were hosting their grand reunion at my Starlight Hotel, the very place where my name is etched on the deed, and they had no idea. I leaned back in my leather chair, the hum of the office air conditioning a faint backdrop to the chaos in my chest. The Starlight stood just blocks from my childhood home in Capitol Hill, where the Harper family name carried weight heavier than gold. My father, James, was a cardiologist whose hands had saved countless lives, from tech moguls to professional athletes, his name whispered with reverence in Seattle's medical circles. My mother, Margaret, was a corporate attorney, the youngest partner at her firm, her sharp mind and sharper heels commanding boardrooms and social galas alike. Growing up, our family was a portrait of the American dream, polished, successful, untouchable. But beneath the surface, it was a pressure cooker. Excellence wasn't just expected, it was the only currency that mattered. My siblings embodied that currency. Ethan, my eldest brother, followed Dad's path, becoming a heart surgeon who pioneered techniques now taught in medical schools. Claire, my sister, graduated top of her class at Yale Law, prosecuted high-profile cases, and was being whispered about for a federal judgeship. Nathan, the youngest, ran a hedge fund in New York, his first million earned before he turned 30. And then there was me, Emily, the odd piece in the Harper puzzle, the one who didn't fit. I wasn't a doctor, a lawyer, or a financier. I was the girl who dreamed of creating moment spaces where people felt seen, where a single night could linger in their hearts forever. To my family, that was a hobby, not a legacy. I closed my eyes, the memory of a childhood moment flooding back. I was 10, standing in our backyard in Capitol Hill, the scent of lilacs heavy in the summer air. I'd spent weeks planning a neighborhood talent show, stringing fairy lights between trees, crafting a stage from old crates, and convincing every kid on the block to perform. The laughter, the applause, the way Mrs. Thompson from next door hugged me afterward, tears in her eyes, saying, "You made this night magical, Emily." It felt like flying. But at dinner that evening, when I shared my triumph, my father's fork paused midair. "That's nice, Emily," he said, his tone flat. "But focus on your math homework. That's what matters." My mother offered a tight smile, her attention already shifting to Ethan's latest science fair win. The message was clear. My kind of magic wasn't worth celebrating. That night, I'd slipped into my room, pulled out a notebook, and scribbled my dream showtels with grand lobbies, guests smiling as they checked in, events that felt like home. I didn't know then that I was sketching the blueprint for Harper Luxe Group, the company that would one day redefine hospitality across cities like Miami, San Francisco, and New York. But I knew I felt alive when I created experiences, when I saw joy spark in someone's eyes. My family saw it differently. To them, my passion was a childish distraction, a path to mediocrity. Aunt Evelyn, my father's older sister, was the worst. She'd married into old money, her husband's wealth tied to Seattle's timber barons, and she wore her status like a crown. At every family gathering, she'd hold court, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her voice dripping with judgment. "Emily, darling," she'd say at my high school graduation, a champagne flute in hand. "Hospitality? That's just hosting parties for people who matter. Harpers don't serve. They lead." The reunion text brought it all rushing back. I opened my phone, rereading Aunt Evelyn's words, each one a dagger wrapped in politeness. The Harpers were gathering at the Starlight, my Starlight, to celebrate their legacy of excellence: doctors, lawyers, dealmakers. They'd booked the grand ballroom, the rooftop terrace, 60 rooms for out-of-town relatives, all without a clue that I was the one who'd built it. The irony was almost poetic. I stood, pacing the office, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The view outside shifted as the rain slowed, Seattle's skyline glinting like a challenge. I could have laughed, but the hurt was too raw. They thought I was still figuring things out, as my mother put it in the family group chat. Nathan had chimed in. Maybe Emily can serve drinks at the reunion. She's probably good at that by now. Claire added a half-hearted, be nice, but the laughing emojis from cousins cut deeper than words. I sank onto the couch, pulling out my journal, a habit I'd started years ago to process moments like this. My pen moved across the page, words spilling out. I am enough. My work matters. They don't define me. Each sentence was a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of self-doubt. I'd spent years building something meaningful, something that touched lives in ways my family couldn't imagine. The Starlight wasn't just a hotel. It was a sanctuary where a tired businesswoman found her favorite coffee waiting without asking, where a couple celebrating their anniversary discovered a handwritten note with their dessert. Every detail, from the hand-stitched linens to the staff trained to anticipate needs, bore my vision. And yet, my family saw me as a failure, a shadow in their spotlight. I thought back to that childhood talent show, to the joy of creating something that brought people together. Even then, I'd known what I wanted to craft experiences that made people feel valued. It wasn't about serving, it was about connection. But the Harpers had a formula for worth. Ivy League degrees plus high-powered careers equaled success. Anything less was invisible. Aunt Evelyn's text was the culmination of that mindset, a decree that I didn't belong because I'd chosen a different path. I set the journal down, my resolve hardening. They'd chosen the Starlight for their reunion, my domain, where every detail reflected my heart. If they wanted to celebrate success, I'd show them what it really looked like. I stood, smoothing my blazer, and walked to the window. The rain had stopped, and the city glowed under a tentative sun. I wasn't the girl they'd dismissed anymore. I was Emily Harper, owner of Harper Lux Group, and I'd built an empire while they weren't looking. The reunion was their stage, but the Starlight was mine. I'd attend not as a Harper, but as the woman who'd turned her dreams into reality. Let them see my name on the building. Let them feel the weight of their mistake. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. And as I looked out over Seattle, I knew one thing for certain. They had no idea what was coming. The scent of roasted coffee and polished mahogany filled the Harper family dining room, a grand space in our Capitol Hill home where Seattle's elite gathered for my parents' meticulously planned dinners. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long oak table, where my father, James, presided like a king, his cardiologist's hands steady as he carved the roast. My mother, Margaret, sat opposite, her tailored blazer as sharp as her legal arguments, her smile a practiced balance of warmth and control. I was 12, wedged between my siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan, each a shining star in the Harper constellation. The room buzzed with talk of Ethan's science Olympiad win, Claire's debate team victory, and Nathan's early acceptance to a prestigious math camp. I clutched my fork, my heart racing with a story I was desperate to share, a community garden event I'd organized at school, where neighbors planted roses and laughed under a summer sky. But when I opened my mouth, my father's voice cut through. "Focus on your grades, Emily," he said, not looking up. "That's what will get you somewhere." The words landed like a weight, and the table moved on without me. That was the Harper way. Success was a narrow path, paved with Ivy League degrees and high-powered careers, and I was already veering off course. Growing up in the Harper household was like living under a spotlight that only shone on certain achievements. My father, a renowned cardiologist, had built his practice from nothing, saving lives in Seattle's top hospitals and earning accolades that lined our living room walls. My mother, the youngest partner at her corporate law firm, juggled high-stakes cases with hosting galas that kept our family's name in Seattle's social pages. To them, success was a formula. Prestigious education plus a career in medicine, law, or finance equaled worth. My siblings embodied it perfectly. Ethan, at 16, was already shadowing surgeons, his path to becoming a heart specialist as clear as a heartbeat. Claire, 2 years younger, dominated mock trials and dreamed of Yale law. Her sharp mind a mirror of our mother's. Nathan, the baby at 10, had a knack for numbers that promised a future in Wall Street's elite circles. And then there was me, Emily. The dreamer who found joy in creating moments, parties, events, spaces where people felt alive. To my family, that was a childish whim, not a legacy. I remember summer evenings in our Capitol Hill backyard, the air thick with the hum of cicadas and the sweet tang of blackberry bushes. I'd spend hours transforming that space stringing paper lanterns, setting up tables with mismatched plates, turning it into a stage for neighborhood gatherings. At 13, I planned a block party, complete with a homemade lemonade stand and a playlist I'd curated for weeks. The joy on Mrs. Callahan's face as she danced with her grandson, the way Mr. Rodriguez thanked me for bringing everyone together, it felt like magic. But at dinner, when I tried to share the story, my mother's smile tightened. "That's sweet, Emily," she said, her voice clipped. "But event planning isn't a career. It's a hobby for people who don't have real ambitions." My siblings exchanged glances, and Ethan muttered something about focusing on AP classes. The dismissal stung, a quiet reminder that my kind of creativity didn't count. School was my refuge, where I found a spark of validation. Miss Larson, my high school art teacher at Garfield High, saw something in me my family couldn't. She was a wiry woman with paint-splattered jeans and a laugh that filled the room. One day, after I'd stayed late to finish a mural for the spring talent show, she sat beside me, her eyes bright. "Emily," she said, "you have a gift for making people feel connected. Don't let anyone tell you that's not enough." Her words were a lifeline, a whisper of permission to dream differently. That night, I went home and created my first vision board, cutting images from old magazines' grand hotel lobbies, smiling guests, sparkling chandelier sand, pasting them onto a poster board I hid under my bed. Each picture was a promise to myself. I'd build a life where my passion mattered, even if my family couldn't see it. But the weight of their expectations was relentless. Every family gathering was a showcase of Harper excellence, especially the reunions hosted every 5 years by Aunt Evelyn, my father's older sister. She'd married into wealth, her husband's timber fortune making her the self-appointed gatekeeper of our family's legacy. At our last reunion, held at a swanky venue near Pike Place Market, she'd cornered me with a glass of wine in hand, her silver hair gleaming under the lights. "Emily," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "Hospitality management? That's just organizing parties for important people. Harpers don't serve, they achieve." My cheeks burned as cousins nearby pretended not to hear, their pitying glances sharper than her words. My cousin Sarah, Evelyn's daughter, already on track for medical school, offered a sympathetic smile before turning away. I was 16, and the message was clear. I was the family's disappointment, the one who didn't measure up. Those moments piled up, each one a brick in the wall between me and my family. Dinners became battlegrounds where my siblings' achievements, Ethan's research grant, Claire's mock trial awards, Nathan's math trophies were toasted with champagne, while my projects, like designing a charity bake sale that raised money for a local shelter, earned polite nods and quick subject changes. I started retreating, speaking less, hiding my dreams deeper. But Miss Larson's encouragement lingered, and so did my vision board, which grew over the years with new clippings boutique hotels in Paris, rooftop bars in New York, guest books filled with grateful notes. It was my rebellion, a quiet vow to build something they couldn't ignore. By my senior year, the pressure reached a breaking point. My parents had mapped out my future. Pre-med at an Ivy League school, followed by medical school, just like Ethan. But I'd been accepted to Cornell's School of Hotel Administration, a program that spoke to my soul. The night I told them, the dining room felt like a courtroom. My father's face darkened, his voice cold. "Hospitality is beneath you, Emily. You'll be taking orders, not giving them." My mother's eyes glistened with tears, her voice soft but cutting. "We just want what's best for you, sweetheart." The implication was clear. My dreams weren't best. They weren't enough. I went to bed that night, my vision board glowing in the moonlight, and made a choice. I'd go to Cornell. I'd prove them wrong not out of spite, but because I believed in the magic of what I could create. Standing in my office now, years later, I traced my fingers over the edge of my desk, the Seattle skyline stretching before me. The Starlight Hotel, just blocks from that dining room, was proof of what I'd built. But Aunt Evelyn's text, banning me from the reunion, brought back that old acheth feeling of being invisible in a family that demanded perfection. I opened my journal, the same one I'd started as a teen, and wrote, "They don't see me, but they will." The words felt like a spark, igniting something fierce and unshakable. The Harpers thought they knew success, but they'd chosen my hotel, my world, for their celebration. I wasn't the girl hiding her vision board anymore. I was Emily Harper, and I was ready to step into the light. The Seattle rain had followed me to Ithaca, New York, or so it felt as I stood outside my dorm at Cornell, the air sharp with autumn chill and the scent of damp leaves. At 18, I was 2,500 miles from the Harper family's Capitol Hill mansion, but the weight of their expectations clung to me like mist. My name is Emily Harper, and I'd just done the unthinkable. I'd chosen Cornell's School of Hotel Administration over the pre-med path my parents, James and Margaret, had mapped out for me. The decision came with a cost-of-family ultimatum that echoed in my mind as I unpacked my suitcase in a cramped dorm room, the walls bare except for the vision board I'd taped above my desk. Pictures of grand hotels, smiling guests, and candlelit events stared back at me, a silent reminder of why I was here. But when my father's voice had boomed through the phone 2 weeks earlier, "Switch to pre-med by next semester, or we're cutting you off," I'd felt my future teeter on a knife's edge. "Then cut me off," I'd replied, my voice steadier than my trembling hands. "I'll make it on my own." Those words were my declaration of independence, but as I stood alone in Ithaca, the reality of breaking free was both exhilarating and terrifying. The Harper household had been a gilded cage, where success meant Ivy League degrees and careers in medicine, law, or finance. My father, a celebrated cardiologist, and my mother, a corporate attorney, had built a legacy in Seattle that my siblings Ethan, Claire, and Nathan were destined to carry forward. Ethan was already on track to become a heart surgeon, Claire was Yale law-bound, and Nathan's math genius promised a Wall Street future. I was the outlier, the one who dreamed of crafting experiences, hotel lobbies that felt like home, events that sparked joy. To my family, that was a childish fantasy, not a career. Aunt Evelyn, the family matriarch with her old money husband and sharp tongue, had called my passion glorified party planning at my high school graduation, her words slicing through me as cousins like Sarah looked on with pity. When I announced my acceptance to Cornell, the dining room fell silent. My mother's eyes welled with tears, not of pride, but of disappointment. "We only want what's best for you," she'd pleaded. My father's anger was colder. "You're throwing away your potential." But to me, Cornell wasn't a compromise. It was a Kalinga chance to turn my vision board into reality. Ithaca was a world apart from Seattle's polished perfection. The Cornell campus buzzed with energy, its stone buildings draped in ivy, the air alive with the chatter of students chasing their own dreams. But freedom came with a price. Without my parents' financial support, I was on my own, my savings a thin lifeline. I took a job at a local hotel, working the front desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., the neon glow of the lobby my companion as I checked in weary travelers. Between classes, I caught naps in the library, my backpack stuffed with textbooks and a thermos of cheap coffee. Weekends meant catering shifts at campus events, carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres while my classmates partied. The exhaustion was bone deep, but every shift taught me something: how to soothe an irate guest, how to spot a detail that could make someone's day. I wasn't just surviving, I was learning the heartbeat of hospitality. Amid the grind, I found an unexpected lifeline: my classmates. Cornell's hotel school was a melting pot of dreamers, people like Maria, a first-generation student from Miami who wanted to open a beachfront resort, Raj, whose family ran a small inn in Chicago, and Liam, a former chef with a knack for storytelling. They weren't just peers. They became my chosen family, the first people who saw my passion as a strength, not a flaw. One rainy evening, over pizza in the dorm lounge, Maria asked about my vision board. I hesitated, then shared my dream of hotels that felt like sanctuaries, where every guest felt valued. "That's not just hospitality," Raj said, his eyes bright. "That's art." Their belief in me was a balm for the wounds my family had left, a reminder that I wasn't alone in seeing the world differently. Inspired by their encouragement, I started a small event planning club on campus, a space to test my ideas and hone my craft. Our first project was a winter gala for international students. Held in a borrowed lecture hall we transformed with string lights, donated flowers, and a playlist I'd spent hours curating. I spent weeks planning every detail: handwritten place cards, a dessert table with local pastries, a photo booth for memories. When the night arrived, the room glowed with laughter, students from across the globe dancing and sharing stories. A girl from Senegal hugged me, her eyes shining. "This feels like home," she said. That moment, standing in a room I'd brought to life, was worth every sleepless night. It was proof that my dreams weren't small, they were powerful. But the distance from my family grew heavier. During winter break, when dorms closed, I stayed in Ithaca, house-sitting for a professor to save on rent. My phone buzzed with photos of my siblings skiing in Aspen, their smiles framed by snow-dusted peaks. My mother called once, her voice tentative. "It's not too late to change your major, Emily," she said. I hung up, my throat tight, and added a new clipping to my vision board: a photo of a boutique hotel in Paris, its courtyard glowing with lanterns. It was my rebellion, my promise to keep going. I stopped checking social media after that, tired of seeing the Harper family's perfect life unfold without me. Instead, I poured myself into the club, planning charity auctions, cultural nights, even a pop-up coffee shop that raised money for a local shelter. Each event was a step toward the future I saw so clearly, even if my family couldn't. Nights in the hotel lobby, checking in guests. I'd overhear their stories: a couple celebrating their anniversary, a businessman missing his kids. I'd jot down ideas in a notebook, a welcome note for returning guests, a complimentary tea for someone who looked tired. These small acts felt like magic, a way to make people feel seen. My family thought hospitality was servitude, but I saw it as connection, a craft as intricate as surgery or law. Miss Larson's words from high school echoed in my mind. "You have a gift for making people feel connected." I clung to that, especially on the hardest days, when exhaustion blurred my vision and doubt crept in. Had I made a mistake? Was I chasing a dream that would never be enough? But then I'd walk through a campus event I'd planned, see the smiles, hear the thank yous, and know I was exactly where I belonged. Standing in my Cornell dorm, my vision board glowing under the desk lamp, I felt a fire ignite inside me. I wasn't just breaking free from my family's expectations. I was building a life on my own terms. The Harpers might see me as a failure, but here, in Ithaca, I was finding my voice. The Starlight Hotel, years away in a future I couldn't yet see, was already taking shape in my heart. I didn't know how hard the road would be, but I knew one thing. I'd chosen freedom, and I'd never look back. The Ithaca winter was unforgiving, the kind that sank into your bones and made every step a battle against the wind. At 19, I stood behind the front desk of a small hotel just off Cornell's campus, the neon glow of the check-in sign casting shadows on my tired face. My name is Emily Harper, and I'd come to Ithaca to chase a dream my family in Seattle's Capitol Hill had dismissed as worth less: a career in hospitality, crafting experiences that made people feel seen. But chasing that dream meant surviving on my own, cut off from the Harper wealth that funded my siblings' Ivy League paths. My father, James, a cardiologist whose name graced Seattle hospitals, and my mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney ruling boardrooms, had made their ultimatum clear: switch to pre-med or lose their support. I'd chosen Cornell's School of Hotel Administration. And now, in the quiet of 2 a.m., shifts, with the hum of a vending machine as my only company, I was learning what resilience really meant. Every aching muscle, every missed holiday, every moment of doubt was a brick in the foundation of the empire I'd one day build: the Starlight Hotel in Seattle, the heart of Harper Lux Group, still a distant vision but growing closer with every hard-won lesson. The hotel job was grueling. From 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I checked in late-night travelers, businessmen in rumpled suits, students visiting friends, weary parents clutching sleeping kids. The lobby smelled of stale coffee and lemon cleaner, and my uniform scratched against my skin as I smiled through exhaustion. Between shifts, I'd race to morning classes at Cornell, my backpack heavy with textbooks and a thermos of instant coffee. Sleep came in stolen bursts on library couches, my notes smudged from dozing mid-study. Weekends meant catering gigs, balancing trays of champagne flutes at alumni events, while my classmates laughed at parties I couldn't attend. My bank account hovered near zero, and when dorms closed for breaks, I house-sat for professors, sleeping on lumpy sofas in drafty homes to save rent. My family, meanwhile, sent photos from ski trips in Aspen or dinners at Canlis. Their Seattle lives a glittering contrast to my ramen-fueled existence. Each photo was a reminder of what I'd lost, but also what I was fighting for. Cornell's hotel school was no walk in the park. The program blended business rigor, finance, marketing, operations with hands-on hospitality training. I learned to analyze profit margins and memorize wine pairings, but the real education came from doing. By my sophomore year, I'd joined the team at the Statler Hotel, Cornell's student-run gem. I started as a front desk clerk, then worked my way up to managing shifts, coordinating check-ins for hundreds of guests during busy weekends. One night, a guest screamed about a late room service order, his face red with frustration. I stayed calm, comped his meal, and sent up a complimentary dessert with a handwritten apology. When he thanked me the next day, his anger gone, I felt a spark of pride. These moments, small as they seemed, were building blocks proof that hospitality wasn't just service. It was a craft of care. The grind wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Holidays were the hardest. My phone would buzz with messages from my siblings, Ethan, now in medical school, Claire, shining at Yale Law, Nathan, acing finance internships. They'd share stories of family gatherings I wasn't invited to, their lives a parade of Harper-approved success. My mother's occasional calls carried a familiar refrain. "It's not too late to switch to law school, Emily." I'd hang up, my chest tight, and open my gratitude log, a small notebook I'd started to keep myself grounded. Each night, I wrote 3 things I was thankful for: a professor's kind word, a guest's smile, a quiet moment with my event planning club. The club, born from my vision board dreams, was my sanctuary. We planned campus events, charity galas, cultural nights that brought students together. Watching a freshman laugh at our spring festival, her homesickness easing, reminded me why I was here. I wasn't just surviving, I was creating. Then came Daniel Brooks, the manager at the Ithaca Hotel where I worked. He was a wiry man in his 50s, with a quick smile and eyes that saw everything. One night, after I'd handled a guest who'd lost his luggage, Daniel pulled me aside. "You've got something special, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "You don't just solve problems, you make people feel like they matter. That's rare." His words hit me like a lifeline. My family, my father, mother, Aunt Evelyn with her old money judgment, even my cousin Sarah saw my work as beneath them. But Daniel saw potential. He taught me the art of anticipation, noticing a guest's tired posture and offering tea, remembering a regular's favorite newspaper. He'd walk the lobby with me, pointing out Detalsa crooked painting, a scuff on the floor that could elevate or ruin an experience. "Hospitality is about intention," he'd say. "Every choice matters." Under Daniel's guidance, I grew bolder. At the Statler, I proposed a new check-in system to streamline busy weekends, cutting wait times by 10 minutes. My grades, shaky at first from juggling work and school, climbed to a 3.7 by junior year. I lived on instant noodles and secondhand sweaters, but every sacrifice felt like a step towards something bigger. My gratitude log filled with entries. Maria's laugh at club meeting. Guest tipped me $5. Passed finance exam. My event planning club grew, too, hosting a winter talent show that drew 100 students. I stood in the back, watching them dance under fairy lights I'd strung myself, and felt a rush of purpose. This was my calling, creating moments that lingered in people's hearts. But doubt was a constant shadow. Late at night, alone in the hotel break room, I'd stare at my vision board, now tacked to my dorm wall. Images of boutique hotels, rooftop bars, guest books overflowing with thanks. Was I crazy to think I could build that? My family's voices echoed my father's warning that I'd be taking orders. Aunt Evelyn's sneer about glorified party planning. I'd close my eyes, picturing the Starlight Hotel, a dream still years away. its glass facade gleaming over Seattle. Then I'd open my gratitude log and write, "I'm still here. I'm enough." Those words carried me through the moments when giving up felt easier than pushing on. By my senior year, I was managing the Statler's front office, training new students, and planning campus-wide events that drew praise from professors. I'd built a small but fierce community: Maria, Raj, Liam, and others who believed in my vision. They were my chosen family, the ones who saw what my blood family couldn't. As graduation loomed, I stood in the Statler lobby, watching guests check out, their smiles a quiet victory. I'd survived thrived in my own terms. The Harper expectations, the Capitol Hill dinners, the Seattle skyline I'd left behind, they didn't define me anymore. I was Emily Harper, and I was ready for whatever came next, even if it meant a harder road than I could imagine. The Miami sun burned bright, its heat wrapping around me like a promise as I stepped out of a cab onto the cracked pavement of my first real job. At 22, I was Emily Harper, a Cornell graduate with a degree in hotel administration and a vision board bursting with dreams of boutique hotels that felt like home. But the reality was far from glamorous mid-range chain hotel in Newark, New Jersey, where I was an assistant manager. The lobby smelled of stale air freshener. The carpets were frayed, and the guests were often louder than the air conditioning units. My tiny apartment nearby had a leaky faucet that dripped in rhythm with my doubts. I'd left Seattle's Capitol Hill, my family's expectations, and their financial support behind, choosing a path my parents, James and Margaret, and siblings Ethan, Claire, and Nathan, had dismissed as beneath me. Aunt Evelyn's voice still echoed from my high school graduation. Harpers don't serve. They achieve. But here I was, serving, learning, and building brick by brick toward the Starlight Hotel in Seattle, the heart of what would become Harper Luxe Group. Every late night, every angry guest, every small victory was a step toward a dream my family couldn't see. Newark was a crucible. The hotel was understaffed. The owner cut corners on maintenance, and the guests ranged from weary business travelers to irate tourists. My days stretched from dawn to midnight, handling check-ins, soothing complaints, and scrubbing coffee stains from the break room counter when the cleaning crew called out. One night, a guest yelled at me over an overbooked room, his voice echoing through the lobby as my coworkers watched. I stood my ground, offered a complimentary upgrade at a sister property, and sent him off with a handwritten apology note. When he emailed a thank you the next day, I sat in the back office, my hands shaking, and cried not from defeat, but from exhaustion. I was broke, living on instant ramen, and my secondhand car broke down weekly. This wasn't the glittering career I'd imagined at Cornell, where I'd managed the Statler Hotel and planned campus events that sparked joy. But it was real, and it was teaching me resilience in ways no classroom could. Then came Daniel Brooks, my mentor from my Ithaca days, who'd moved to a regional role overseeing hotels in the Northeast. He arrived for a surprise inspection one humid evening, finding me in the midst of a chaotic shift. Instead of critiquing, he sat with me in the break room, his steady presence a contrast to the flickering fluorescent lights. "You're not just managing chaos, Emily," he said, his voice warm. "You're creating order, making people feel cared for even when everything's falling apart. That's the heart of hospitality." His belief in me was a spark, reigniting the fire I'd felt at Cornell. He recommended me for a new role in Philadelphia, helping turn around a struggling boutique hotel called the Clover. I packed my few belongings, said goodbye to Newark's moldy apartment, and moved, determined to prove him right. Philadelphia was a fresh start, but no less demanding. The Clover was a charming but rundown property in Rittenhouse Square, its occupancy rates plummeting due to outdated decor and poor service. I worked 16-hour days, redesigning the guest experience from check-in to check-out. I trained staff to notice small details: a guest's favorite tea, a child's love for coloring books, and introduced a system to track preferences, making every stay feel personal. I sourced local artwork for the lobby, swapped fluorescent bulbs for warm lighting, and created a signature welcome drink with Pennsylvania honey. 6 months later, occupancy was up 40%. And my first significant bonus arrived: a check I didn't cash, but framed. A reminder that my work mattered, even if my family didn't see it. I called my mother to share the news, my heart pounding with hope. "That's nice, dear," she said, her voice distant. "Did you hear Claire's prosecuting a major case?" The call ended, and I stared at the framed check. The victory bitter but mine. Miami changed everything. At 26, I attended a hospitality industry mixer in South Beach, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and possibility. There, I met Laura Bennett, a tech entrepreneur who'd sold her startup for millions and was looking to invest in something new. Over glasses of overpriced rosé, I shared my vision: not just hotels, but sanctuaries where guests felt seen, where luxury meant authenticity, not ostentation. "It's not about thread counts or marble floors," I told her, my words spilling out. "It's about knowing a guest loves jazz and playing Ella Fitzgerald in the lounge, or remembering a couple's anniversary with a handwritten note." Laura listened, her sharp eyes locked on mine. 3 hours later, she slid her business card across the table. "I want in," she said. "Let's build something extraordinary." With Laura's backing, Harper Lux Group was born. We bought a dilapidated Art Deco building in Miami's Wynwood district, its faded facade hiding potential I could see in my bones. I lived in a tiny apartment within the construction zone, the sound of drills my morning alarm. Every decision: fabrics, menus, staff training was mine, shaped by years of lessons from Newark and Philadelphia. I insisted on sustainable practices, using reclaimed wood for furniture, and partnering with local farmers for the restaurant. The Haven opened quietly, but word spread among Miami's elite celebrities, tech moguls, travelers seeking something real. For the soft opening, I invited local artists to showcase their work, turning the lobby into a gallery where guests sipped cocktails amid vibrant murals. A painter named Javier hugged me, tears in his eyes. "You gave my art a home," he said. That night, watching guests mingle, I felt the dream I'd carried since my Cornell vision board come to life. My family knew none of this. To them, I was still figuring things out in some low-level hotel job. My mother's occasional calls carried the same refrain. "Law school's always an option, Emily." I'd deflect, vague about my work, letting them assume I was drifting. But the Haven was no drift, it was a triumph. Guests left glowing reviews, praising the personal touches. A book left on a nightstand for a literature professor. A vegan dessert crafted for a regular. Within a year, the Haven was at 90% occupancy, and Laura and I were scouting our next property. I stood on the Haven's rooftop, the Miami skyline glittering below, and opened my gratitude log, a habit from my Cornell days. "First hotel opened," I wrote. "People felt seen tonight." The Harper family might not understand, but I was building something bigger than their approval and empire, rooted in connection, not competition. The Starlight Hotel, still a distant dream in Seattle, was closer than ever. The San Francisco fog rolled in like a whisper, cloaking the city in a soft gray that mirrored the quiet I'd chosen for my life. At 30, I stood on the balcony of my latest hotel, the Beacon, its sleek glass facade reflecting the Bay Area's restless energy. My name is Emily Harper, and I'd built Harper Lux Group into a silent Emperor 12 boutique hotels across cities like Miami, New York, Austin, and now San Francisco, with the Starlight Hotel in Seattle as my crowning achievement. Each property was a testament to my vision. Spaces where guests felt seen, where luxury meant connection, not flash. But to my family back in Seattle's Capitol Hill, I was still the disappointment. The one who'd chosen glorified party planning over their approved paths of medicine, law, or finance. My father, James, a renowned cardiologist. My mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney. My siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan. Shining in their high-powered careers, they all believed I was drifting, working some low-level job at a chain hotel. I'd kept my success hidden, not out of shame, but because I wanted my work to speak for itself. Standing here, with the hum of the city below, I felt both the weight of that silence and the power of what I'd built. The journey from the Haven in Miami to this moment had been relentless. After opening the Haven with Laura Bennett's investment, I'd poured every ounce of myself into expanding Harper Lux Group. Miami's success, 90% occupancy, glowing reviews drew investors eager to back our next move. We acquired a historic hotel in New York's West Village, then a modernist gem in Austin, each one a canvas for my philosophy of authentic luxury. I insisted on sustainable practices, reclaimed wood furniture, locally sourced linens, menus featuring regional ingredients. The Beacon in San Francisco, with its rooftop garden overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, was our boldest yet. I'd spent months overseeing its renovation, choosing every detail: hand-blown glass chandeliers, staff uniforms designed by a local seamstress, a library nook for guests to escape. The opening night, as guests sipped Napa Valley wine and shared stories under string lights, I stood in the shadows, watching their smiles. This was why I'd fought so hard, because these moments, these connections, were my legacy. But success came with solitude. I'd chosen to operate behind the scenes, letting Harper Luxe Group's reputation grow without tying my name to it. Industry insiders knew of our profitability: $300 million in revenue, 2,000 employees, but to the public, I was just E. Harper, the elusive founder. My family's ignorance was deliberate. My mother's occasional calls still carried the same refrain: "It's not too late for law school, Emily." My siblings: Ethan, now a heart surgeon; Claire, a federal prosecutor; Nathan, a hedge fund star, sent holiday cards showcasing their perfect lives, their achievements a silent rebuke of my failure. Aunt Evelyn, the family matriarch with her old money heirs, hadn't spoken to me since her last reunion lecture, when she'd called my career "serving people who matter." I could have corrected them, could have sent a press clipping about the Haven or the Beacon, but I didn't. Part of me feared their dismissal would taint what I'd built. Another part wanted to reveal my empire only when it was too big to ignore. The loneliness was a quiet ache. During holidays, I'd walk through my hotel's lobbies, watching families reunite, parents hugging children, couples laughing over hot cocoa. The Starlight in Seattle, just blocks from my childhood home, was the hardest. Its grand lobby, with its marble floors and hand-painted murals, was my proudest creation, yet it reminded me of what I'd lost. I'd stopped attending Harper family gatherings after a Thanksgiving, where Nathan, smirking, asked what I earned, then said, "My assistant makes more." I'd smiled, said nothing, and left early, vowing to let my work be my voice. But in those quiet moments, as I watched guests embrace, I wondered if I'd traded too much for my dream. My Cornell friends Maria, Raj, Liam had drifted into their own lives, and I'd kept new colleagues at arm's length, afraid to let anyone too close after years of rejection. Then came the spark of purpose that kept me grounded. My team. Harper Luxe Group wasn't just about guests. It was about the people who brought my vision to life. I started a scholarship fund for aspiring hospitality professionals from underserved backgrounds, mentoring young employees who reminded me of my younger self. One was Aisha, a 20-year-old server at the Beacon, whose quiet determination mirrored mine. I'd sit with her after shifts, sharing lessons Daniel Brooks, my Ithaca mentor, had taught me. Anticipate needs, notice details, make every interaction count. "You're not just serving," I told her. "You're creating memories." Her shy smile, her growing confidence, became my fuel. I wasn't just building hotels. I was building futures. To deepen the guest experience, I introduced Moments of Joy, a system where staff surprised guests with personalized gestures. A teacher who loved poetry might find a Pablo Neruda collection by her bedside. A weary traveler might receive a warm scarf on a chilly San Francisco night. At the Beacon's opening, I'd watched a guest, a single mother, tear up when we gifted her daughter a sketchbook after overhearing her love for drawing. "You made her feel special," she said, hugging me. Those moments were my rebellion against the Harper formula of success: degrees, status, wealth. To me, success was a child's smile, a guest's gratitude, a team member's growth. My gratitude log, a habit from Cornell, was my anchor. Late at night, in my sparse San Francisco apartment, I'd write, "Aisha nailed her first shift lead." Guest left a thank you note. The Beacon's garden bloomed today. Each entry was a reminder that I was enough, even if my family couldn't see it. Their occasional texts: Claire's engagement announcement, Ethan's new surgical award landed, like pinpricks, but I tucked them away. Fuel for the fire. I wasn't hiding my success to spite them. I was protecting it, nurturing it until it was undeniable. The Starlight, my masterpiece, stood as proof. Its restoration had been my obsession, a century-old Seattle landmark, reborn with my vision of warmth and connection. Every chandelier, every menu, Every staff smile bore my touch, yet my family walked past it daily, oblivious. As I stood on the beacon's balcony, the fog lifting to reveal the city's lights, I felt a quiet certainty. Harper Lux Group was more than a business. It was my answer to a world that tried to define me. My family thought I was lost, but I was building a legacy they couldn't imagine. The starlight, gleaming in Seattle, was waiting for its moment. And when it came, when they saw my name on the building, they'd finally understand what I'd known all along. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. The Seattle skyline glittered through my office window, the Space Needle, a sharp silhouette against the dusk. At 35, I stood at the helm of Harper Lux Group, my silent empire of 12 boutique hotels stretching from Miami to San Francisco, with the Starlight Hotel Me masterpiece shining brightest in my hometown. My name is Emily Harper, and I'd built a legacy of authentic luxury, where every guest felt seen, every detail intentional. But to my family, rooted in Capitol Hill's elite circles, I was still the disappointment, the one who'd chosen hospitality over their revered paths of medicine, law, or finance. My father, James, a celebrated cardiologist, my mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney, my siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan, thriving as a heart surgeon, federal prosecutor, and hedge fund star, they all saw me as figuring things out, a failure in their world of measurable success. So when I saw an Instagram post from my cousin Sarah's daughter, tagging the Harper family reunion at the Starlight, my heart stopped. They'd chosen my hotel, my domain, for their celebration of excellence. And then came Aunt Evelyn's text, sharp as a blade. Emily dear, the reunion is for Harper's success. Given your lifestyle choices, it's best you sit this one out. No failures allowed. The words burned, but as I stood in my office, the city's lights reflecting in my eyes, I knew this was my moment not for revenge, but for truth. The Instagram post had been casual, a teenager's excitement about the big Harper reunion at the Starlight, Seattle's finest. For a fleeting second, I wondered if they'd discovered my secret that I, Emily Harper, owned the Starlight, the hotel where they'd booked 60 rooms, the grand ballroom, and a rooftop terrace for their gala. Had they finally seen my worth? But Aunt Evelyn's text, sent privately to spare me embarrassment, shattered that hope. Her words echoed years of judgment. Her voice at my graduation, calling hospitality glorified housekeeping. My father's warning that I'd be taking orders. My mother's tearful pleas to choose law school. The family group chat piled on, Nathan joking, maybe Emily can pour our drinks at the Starlight, followed by laughing emojis from cousins. Claire's weak, be nice, did little to dull the sting. They thought I was a low-level worker, invisible in their world of prestige. But they'd walked into my house, and I wasn't going to stay silent. I sat at my desk, the hum of my office, a steady anchor as I pulled up the reunion's reservation details. The Harper family had spared no expense. A full buyout of the Starlight's premier spaces. A custom menu with Pacific Northwest salmon and Walla Walla wines. Special requests for lavender-scented linens and turn-down service with handmade truffles. It was the kind of event the Starlight excelled at, where every detail was a brushstroke in my vision of care. My assistant Rachel knocked and entered, her eyes catching the tension on my face. "Everything okay, Emily?" she asked, glancing at my phone. I handed it to her, letting her read Aunt Evelyn's text. Her jaw tightened. "These are your family? The ones whose photos you keep in that box?" I nodded, my voice low. "They don't know about any of this." I gestured to the office, the skyline, the empire I'd built. Rachel's indignation was fierce. "They're holding their reunion in your hotel and calling you a failure? What are you going to do?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. I could ignore the reunion, let them celebrate their version of success, while I stayed in the shadows. I could send a press release, revealing my ownership from a distance. But as I stared at the reservation, Marilyn and Theodore Bennett, my aunt and uncle, listed as hosts, something shifted inside me. They'd chosen the Starlight, my stage, to flaunt their legacy while excluding me for not being enough. This was no coincidence, it was an opportunity. "I'm going to attend," I said, my voice steady. Not as a Harper, but as the owner. Rachel's eyes widened, a slow smile spreading. They're not ready for you, she said. She was right. I called a meeting with my Starlight team. Rachel, my assistant, Michael Chen, head of security, and Diana Torres, the general manager. We gathered in the hotel's executive suite, the Puget Sound sparkling beyond the windows. I laid out the situation not as a family drama, but as a high-stakes event requiring perfection. The Harper family expects excellence, I said. We'll give them the Starlight experience flawless, unforgettable, every detail perfect. Michael nodded, pulling up the guest list on his tablet. 60 rooms, the ballroom, the rooftop terrace for a stargazing event, he confirmed. The stargazing was my idea, inspired by childhood nights in Capitol Hill, lying on the grass with a telescope, dreaming under the stars. I designed the rooftop event to evoke that wonder telescopes for guests, a guide to point out constellations, blankets, and hot cider for Seattle's chilly nights. It was a touch of magic, a nod to the girl I'd been before my family's expectations tried to dim her. We spent days planning. Diana ensured the staff was briefed on every request, from vegan options to personalized welcome notes. Michael reviewed security protocols, ensuring discretion for high-profile guests like my father and Claire, whose prosecutor status drew attention. I wanted no slip-ups, no chance for criticism. The Harpers would experience the Starlight at its best, unaware that every gesture was under my direction. Should we tell the staff about your connection to the guests? Diana asked. I shook my head. Just say I'm making a rare appearance to oversee a VIP event. Business as usual. But it was anything but usual. Alone in my apartment that night, I battled a storm of emotions. Part of me imagined a dramatic reveal, striding into the gala to see Aunt Evelyn's face fall. Another part, the one shaped by years of building something meaningful, recoiled at the thought. I didn't want to weaponize my success. I wanted to show them what I'd built, who I was. To steady myself, I practiced a visualization exercise I'd learned in college, closing my eyes and picturing the reunion. I saw the ballroom glowing with chandeliers, my family in their designer attire, oblivious to my presence. I imagined stepping forward, calm and confident, my voice clear. Welcome to my hotel. The exercise grounded me, turning fear into focus. I wasn't the girl they'd dismissed anymore, the one who'd hidden her vision board from their judgment. I was Emily Harper, owner of Harper Luxe Group, and the Starlight was my masterpiece. As I packed for Seattle, the city where I'd grown up feeling small, I felt a quiet power. My family thought they were celebrating their legacy, but they were walking into mine. Aunt Evelyn's "No Failures Allowed" was about to meet the truth 12 years in the making, etched in the walls of the Starlight, waiting to be seen. The Starlight Hotel's grand ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across tables adorned with white orchids and silver candelabras. The air carried the scent of roasted hazelnuts and Walla Walla Valley wine, mingling with the soft strains of a string quartet playing Vivaldi. At 35, I, Emily Harper, stood in the shadows of a side entrance, my midnight blue gown brushing the polished floor. This was my hotel. The heart of Harper Luxe Group, my silent empire of 12 boutique hotels stretching from Miami to San Francisco. But to the Harper family, gathered here in Seattle's Capitol Hill for their reunion, I was the failure, the one who'd chosen hospitality over their revered paths of medicine, law, or finance. My father, James, a cardiologist. My mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney. My siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan, a heart surgeon, federal prosecutor, and hedge fund star. They'd banned me from this event, deeming me unworthy. Aunt Evelyn's text still burned in my memory. No failures allowed. Tonight, they'd learn the truth. My heart pounded, but as I smoothed my gown, I felt a quiet certainty. This was my moment, 12 years in the making, to step out of their shadows and into my own light. The ballroom was a sea of elegance. My family resplendent in designer attire, women in silk gowns, men in tailored tuxedos, their laughter a polished performance of Harper excellence. I'd entered quietly, blending into the crowd, my presence unnoticed after years of estrangement. The advantage of being the family outcast was anonymity. Cousins like Sarah, now a doctor, hadn't seen me in a decade. And my transformed appearance, confident posture, sleek hairstyle kept me invisible. I moved through the room, catching snippets of conversation that felt like echoes of my childhood. "Ethan's new surgical technique is revolutionary," a cousin boasted. "Claire's up for a judgeship," another chimed in. "Nathan closed a billion-dollar deal." The litany of achievements was familiar, but tonight it didn't shrink me. Instead, it fueled me. Near the bar, I overheard my mother speaking to an aunt. "The Starlight is exquisite," she said. "They say the owner is a recluse who handpicks every detail." I smiled, remembering the time I'd personally escorted a rude celebrity out for berating my staff. That was the power I held, unseen by the family who'd dismissed me. I retreated to a corner, my eyes meeting Diana Torres, the Starlight's general manager, across the room. Her subtle nod confirmed everything was ready. The dinner service had been flawless. Each course Dungeness crab bisque, herb-crusted lamb, blackberry tart chosen by me to showcase the Starlight's culinary artistry. The staff, trained in my philosophy of anticipatory service, moved like a quiet symphony, refilling glasses before guests noticed they were empty. But the moment I'd planned for was approaching. Aunt Evelyn, her silver hair gleaming, rose from the head table, champagne flute in hand, to deliver her traditional address. The room hushed as her voice rang out, crisp with authority. "For generations, the Harper name has stood for excellence," she began. "Doctors who heal, lawyers who uphold justice, leaders who shape the future. Tonight, we celebrate discipline, ambition, and the refusal to settle for less." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. "To absent family members," she continued, her tone pointed, "serving our country or pursuing worthy goals." The omission was deliberate, a public erasure of me. The failure they'd excluded. My hands tightened around my clutch, the sting of her words sharp but fleeting. Then, the moment arrived. A commotion erupted at Aunt Evelyn's table server, following my subtle cue, had misplaced a floral arrangement, brushing it too close to her Hermes clutch. "This is outrageous." Evelyn's voice cut through the silence, her face flushed. "Where's the manager? We paid for exclusivity, not incompetence." The room froze, guests shifting uncomfortably. Diana stepped forward, her calm professional. "I apologize, Mrs. Bennett," she said. "We'll address this immediately." Evelyn's indignation flared. "I want the owner. Whoever runs this place needs to answer for this." Diana's eyes flicked to me, and I took a deep breath, my heels clicking as I stepped into the center of the room. All eyes turned, a wave of curiosity rippling through the crowd. "Good evening, Aunt Evelyn," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying across the ballroom. "I understand there's an issue with your table. As the owner of the Starlight, I'm here to ensure your satisfaction." The silence was deafening, a collective intake of breath as recognition dawned. Aunt Evelyn's face drained of color, her champagne flute trembling. My father half stood, his mouth open but wordless. My mother's glass slipped, wine pooling on the tablecloth. Ethan, Claire, and Nathan stared, their polished facades cracking. "Hello, family," I continued, my gaze sweeping the room. "Welcome to the Starlight, my hotelone of 12 in the Harper Lux Group, which I founded and own." The shock was palpable, faces registering disbelief, confusion, denial. I stepped closer to Evelyn's table, my voice unwavering. "You mentioned a floral issue. At the Starlight, we take every detail seriously. It's why we're Seattle's most exclusive hotel, with a reputation for excellence." I nodded to a server, who swiftly adjusted the arrangement with precision I'd personally trained. "This isn't possible," Evelyn sputtered, her voice thin. "You work at some chain in Chicago." I smiled, calm, but firm. "I own properties in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Miami, and beyond. Harper Lux Group employs 2,000 people and generated $300 million last year." Diana approached, presenting a portfolio of ownership documents and press clippings. My father took it, his hands shaking as he scanned the proof. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother whispered, tears glistening. The question hung heavy, laying bare years of dismissal every dinner where my siblings' achievements were toasted while my dreams were ignored. Every reunion where Aunt Evelyn judged me, every text mocking my failure. You never asked, I said simply. You decided who I was long ago, and that person wasn't worth your time. I turned to the room, my voice rising with conviction. I didn't build this to prove you wrong. I built it because I believe in creating spaces where people feel valued. Last month, a single father stayed here during his daughter's cancer treatment. We left her favorite stuffed animal on her pillow each night, a small comfort. He wrote to us, saying those moments gave them hope. That's what hospitality is: connection, not status. I raised a glass, my eyes locking with Evelyn's. I propose a toast to redefining success. Sometimes it's a surgical breakthrough, a legal victory, or a billion-dollar deal. Sometimes it's a child feeling safe in a strange city, or a family feeling seen. Excellence comes in many forms. The room hesitated, then glasses lifted, the clink a reluctant acknowledgement. I set my glass down, my voice soft but firm. Enjoy your dessert. The Starlight's chocolate tart is unforgettable. This is still a celebration, after all. As I turned to leave, my father stood, his voice uncertain. Emily. I met his gaze. Steady. We'll talk later, Dad. For now, enjoy your evening. Walking out, my heart raced, but not with triumph relief. I'd imagined this moment for years, their shock, their regret. But standing in my truth, I felt no need for vengeance, only clarity. The girl they'd dismissed had built an empire, and tonight they'd finally seen her. The Starlight's chandeliers glowed behind me, a beacon of what I'd created. And I knew this was just the beginning. The Seattle dawn broke softly over the Starlight Hotel, its glass facade catching the first light like a quiet exhale. I stood in my office, the city's skyline stretching before me, the hum of Capitol Hill waking in the distance. At 35, I, Emily Harper, had just turned my family's world upside down. Last night, at the Harper Family Reunion Gala, I'd revealed I was the owner of the Starlight, the heart of Harper Lux Group's 12 boutique hotels, shattering their belief that I was a failure for choosing hospitality over their revered paths of medicine, law, or finance. My father, James, a cardiologist, my mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney, my siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan, a heart surgeon, federal prosecutor, and hedge fund star. They'd banned me from the reunion, their judgment sealed by Aunt Evelyn's text. No failures allowed. Now, as the weight of my revelation settled, the ballroom's chandeliers dimmed, and the echoes of their shock lingered, I felt no triumph, only a fragile hope. The girl they'd dismissed had stepped into her truth, but what came next, reconciliation, rejection, or something in between, remained uncertain. The gala's aftermath was chaos wrapped in decorum. As I'd left the ballroom, my family fractured into hushed huddles, their designer gowns and tuxedos a stark contrast to their unraveling composure. Some stared openly as I passed, their eyes wide with disbelief. Others avoided my gaze, their discomfort palpable. Aunt Evelyn, her silver hair no longer regal but wilted, retreated to her suite with a murmured excuse of a migraine, her husband Theodore trailing behind. I instructed the staff to send up her favorite chamomile tea and house-made shortbread, not as a jab, but as a quiet demonstration of what I'd built: hospitality that cared, even when it wasn't deserved. The reunion schedule continued: Sunday brunch, family photos on the grand staircase, but an undercurrent of unease rippled through every moment. My cousin Sarah, now a doctor, caught my eye during brunch, her expression a mix of guilt and awe, but said nothing. The Harpers, so skilled at projecting perfection, were grappling with a truth they couldn't dismiss. I'd built an empire under their noses. The first real conversation came Sunday morning, when Claire knocked on my office door. My sister, always the sharpest of us, entered hesitantly, her tailored blazer a shield against vulnerability. The office, with its sleek desk and view of Puget Sound, seemed to unsettle her, a space that screamed authority, not failure. "I don't know where to start," she said, perching on a chair's edge. Her eyes, lined with stress, betrayed the toll of her federal prosecutor role. I leaned back, my voice soft. "Neither do I, Claire. It's been a long time. Growing up, she'd been my rival. Her Yale law dreams a benchmark I could never meet. Now, she looked small, her perfection fraying. Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, gesturing to the room, the hotel, my life. All those years, we talked about our careers, and you never said a word. I met her gaze, steady. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was exaggerating to save face? Her silence was answer enough. I spoke gently but firmly. Every milestone, the haven in Miami, the beacon in San Francisco, wanted to share. But I remembered the eye rolls, the way my dreams were a phase to outgrow. Claire's voice cracked. I didn't know how much we hurt you. For the first time, we talked as equals. She confessed her marriage was crumbling under the pressure of her career, her children strangers she barely saw. You followed your heart, she said, tears falling. Maybe you got it right. By afternoon, Ethan and Nathan sought me out, each conversation a different shade of reckoning. Ethan, the heart surgeon, found me in the Starlight's rooftop garden, where I'd designed a stargazing event for the reunion. His usual confidence faltered as he admitted burnout, his health and family sacrificed for prestige. You built something that makes people happy, he said, his voice low. I'm not sure I can say that. Nathan, the hedge fund star, was more defensive, meeting me in the lobby, his suit impeccable, but his eyes tired. I make money, moving money, he said bluntly. You create meaning. Who's the real success here? Their words, raw and unexpected, revealed cracks in the Harper facade. They'd chased the family's definition of excellence, but it had left them hollow, questioning what I'd rejected. The hardest moment came Sunday evening, when my parents requested a private meeting in the Starlight's garden terrace. They sat side by side, smaller than the towering figures of my childhood, the scent of lavender heavy in the air. My father spoke first, his voice unsteady. We owe you an apology, Emily. Many apologies. My mother reached for my hand, her eyes wet. We were wrong about your choices, about what success means. About you. The words I'd longed for landed softly, but they couldn't erase years of dismissal. Why couldn't you see me? I asked, my voice breaking, the question I'd carried since childhood spilling out. Why wasn't I enough? My father looked away, his hands clasped. We thought we were pushing you toward security, a path we understood. My mother's voice trembled. That's no excuse. We should have trusted you. The conversation was raw, old patterns threatening to resurface, but it was a start of fragile bridge across a chasm of misunderstanding. To ground myself, I hosted a staff appreciation event that night in the Starlight's courtyard, a gesture to thank the team who'd made the reunion flawless. Under string lights, I shared pizza and stories with Rachel, Michael Chen, Diana Torres, and others, their laughter a balm. Aisha, the young server I'd mentored, hugged me, her eyes shining. You showed them, she whispered. Their belief in me was a reminder of the family I'd built beyond blood. Later, alone in my suite, I wrote a letter to my younger self, a practice I'd started in college. Dear Emily, I began. You were never a failure. Your dreams were enough. Keep building. Keep loving. Keep being you. The words flowed, a release of the pain I'd carried, a promise to live whole. As the Harpers departed Monday, there were awkward hugs, tentative promises to call. I accepted them cautiously, knowing healing would take time. My revelation hadn't rewritten the past, but it had cracked open the future. Standing in the Starlight's lobby, watching guests check in, I realized my success wasn't about their approval, it was about the life I'd built, the people I'd touched. The Starlight, gleaming in Seattle, was my answer to their judgment, and I was ready to step forward, no longer silent, but fully seen. The Seattle skyline shimmered under a rare spring sun, its light filtering through the Starlight Hotel's rooftop garden, where I stood surrounded by blooming lavender and the hum of the city below. At 35, I, Emily Harper, had transformed my life from the shadows of my family's judgment into a beacon of purpose. The Starlight, the crown jewel of Harper Luxe Group's 12 boutique hotels, stood tall in Capitol Hill, a testament to my vision of hospitality as connection, not servitude. Weeks had passed since the Harper family reunion, where I'd revealed my ownership, shattering their belief that I was a failure for choosing a path outside their revered fields of medicine, law, and finance. My father, James, a cardiologist. My mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney. My siblings, Ethan, Claire, and Nathan. a heart surgeon, federal prosecutor, and hedge fund star. They'd seen my empire. And now, as I navigated the aftermath, I was redefining success on my own terms. The girl who'd once hidden her vision board from their dismissal was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her worth, not because they finally saw it, but because she always had. The reunion had been a turning point, but not a fairy tale ending. My family's reaction: shock, guilt, tentative apologies opened doors to new conversations. But healing was a slow dance. Claire was the first to reach out, visiting the Haven in Miami, her eyes wide as she toured the art-filled lobby I'd designed. Over coffee, she shared her struggle-sure marriage unraveling, her children growing up without Heron admitted. "I envied your courage, Emily. You chose joy over expectation." Ethan called next, inviting me to his hospital in Seattle, where he confessed his burnout, questioning if his surgical prestige was worth the cost. Nathan, ever the skeptic, met me at the Beacon in San Francisco. His hedge fund bravado softened as he admitted, "Your hotels feel alive. My work just feels empty." These moments, raw and imperfect, weren't full reconciliation, but they were steps toward understanding, a chance to see each other beyond the Harper mold. My parents' visit to the Starlight was the most delicate. They arrived one quiet afternoon, their footsteps hesitant in the lobby's marble expanse. My father, once a towering figure, seemed smaller, his eyes tracing the hand-painted murals I'd chosen. My mother, always poised, fidgeted with her scarf, her gaze lingering on the staff greeting guests by name. I gave them a tour, showing the rooftop garden where I'd hosted the reunion stargazing event, the library nook where guests left handwritten notes in a guest book. "I see it now," my father said softly, standing by a telescope I'd placed for guests. "You've always noticed people, made them feel special. This suits you." My mother nodded, tears in her eyes. "We should have seen it sooner." The words weren't a cure for years of dismissal, but they were an acknowledgement, a crack in the wall that had separated us. As they left, I felt a quiet release, not forgiveness. Not yet, but possibility. Aunt Evelyn remained distant, her formal apology letter arriving weeks later, its polished prose more PR than heartfelt. I tucked it away, accepting that some bonds might never mend. But the reunion's ripple effects went beyond family. I'd spent years compartmentalizing my life, hiding my success from the Harpers, and my vulnerability from colleagues. Now, I opened up. I reconnected with my Cornell friends Maria, Raj, Liam, sharing stories over Zoom, their pride a reminder of the chosen family who'd believed in me when blood didn't. At the Starlight, I grew closer to my team: Rachel, Michael Chen, Diana Torres, Aisha, hosting dinners where we laughed over shared dreams. I started dating again, no longer downplaying my achievements, letting myself be seen fully for the first time. The greatest shift was within me. For years, I'd measured my success against my family's rejection, each hotel opening shadowed by their imagined dismissal. The Starlight, the Haven, the Beacon, they were milestones, but also defenses, built to prove I wasn't the failure they claimed. The reunion changed that. Standing in that ballroom, declaring my truth, I realized success wasn't about their approval, it was about meaning. I launched Hospitality for All, a community initiative offering the Starlight's event spaces to local nonprofits for free. At our first event, a fundraiser for a youth arts program, I watched kids paint murals in the courtyard, their laughter echoing. A volunteer, a single mother, hugged me, saying this gave them hope. That moment, more than any revenue figure, was my new measure of success. To share this vision, I stepped out of the shadows. I gave my first industry speech at a hospitality conference in Chicago, sharing my journey from Cornell's late-night shifts to building Harper Lux Group. The audience, young professionals, seasoned executives, stood to applaud, their faces reflecting my own hunger for purpose. I accepted awards for sustainability and innovation, no longer hiding behind the Harper name. I launched a social media campaign, Number My Own Path, inviting people to share stories of redefining success. The responses flooded: Ina, nurse who'd opened a bakery, a lawyer turned teacher, a student choosing art over engineering. Each story was a thread in a tapestry of courage, a reminder that success is as diverse as the hearts that chase it. One evening, I invited Laura Bennett, my investor, and my Starlight team to a private dinner at the Haven in Miami, where it all began. Under a canopy of fairy lights, we toasted to seeing people as they are, not as we expect them to be. Aisha, now a shift lead, raised her glass. To Emily, who showed us dreams are enough. I smiled, my gratitude log heavy with new entries. Claire's visit. Kids painting at the fundraiser. I am whole. The Harpers were still a work in progress and bonds growing. Others distant, but I no longer needed their validation. True freedom came when I stopped asking, "Is this enough?" and started living the answer. Standing in the Starlight's garden now, the Seattle breeze carrying the scent of lavender, I looked out at the city where I'd once felt small. The Space Needle stood tall, a reminder of the dreams I'd carried since childhood. Harper Lux Group thrived, not with rapid expansion, but with thoughtful growth. Each hotel a space where guests and staff felt valued. I'd learned that success isn't a destination, it's a journey of building a life that feels true, surrounded by people who see you, extending that gift to others. To anyone reading this, I ask, what's your path? Have you redefined success against the odds? Share your story with My Own Path, because the greatest victory isn't what you achieve, it's learning to value yourself when others don't. The Starlight shines for you too, a beacon of possibility in a world that tries to define your worth. Keep building, keep dreaming, and know that you are enough. The Seattle skyline stretched before the Starlight Hotel, its glass facade reflecting a city that had once felt like a cage, but now stood as a canvas for Emily Harper's dreams. At 35, Emily had woven a tapestry of resilience, defiance, and quiet triumph. Her journey a testament to the power of redefining success against a world that tried to define her worth. Born into the Harper family's Capitol Hill elite, Emily grew up under the weight of expectations as rigid as the chandeliers in their dining room. Her father, James, a renowned cardiologist, and her mother, Margaret, a corporate attorney, had crafted a legacy of excellence, mirrored by her siblings Ethan, a heart surgeon, Claire, a federal prosecutor, and Nathan, a hedge fund star. To them, success was a formula. Ivy League degrees, high-powered careers, social status. But Emily, with her love for creating experiences, neighborhood talent shows, school events that sparked joy, was the outlier, dismissed as a dreamer chasing a path beneath their name. Aunt Evelyn, the family matriarch, crystallized their judgment, her voice sharp at Emily's high school graduation. Harpers don't serve, they achieve. Yet it was in that dismissal that Emily found her spark, a fire that would lead her to build Harper Lux Group, a silent empire of 12 boutique hotels, with the Starlight as its beating heart. Emily's journey began with a bold act of defiance. At 18, she chose Cornell's School of Hotel Administration over her parents' pre-med ultimatum, facing their threat to cut her off with a steady, "I'll make it on my own." In Ithaca, she survived on night shifts at a local hotel, catering gigs, and naps in library corners. Her vision board clipped images of grand lobbies and smiling gesture North Star. Her classmates, Maria, Raj, and Liam, became her chosen family, their belief in her dreams a balm for the Harper family's rejection. She founded an event planning club, transforming lecture halls into spaces of connection, each gala a step toward her future. Her mentor, Daniel Brooks, taught her the art of anticipation, turning small gestures into moments of care. Through exhaustion and doubt, Emily kept a gratitude log, noting whence a guest's smile, a passing grade that fueled her resolve. By graduation, she'd managed Cornell's Statler Hotel, her 3.7 GPA, a quiet victory over the odds. The real world tested her further. Her first job in Newark's rundown hotel was a grind of angry guests and long hours, but it honed her skills. In Philadelphia, she turned around the Clover, boosting occupancy by 40%. Her framed bonus check, a symbol of progress her family ignored. In Miami, a chance meeting with investor Laura Bennett birthed Harper Lux Group. The Haven, their first hotel, opened with local artists' murals and sustainable practices, its success a whisper of what was to come. Emily expanded to New York, Austin, San Francisco, and beyond, each hotel a sanctuary where guests felt seen, poetry books left for teachers, scarves for chilly travelers. She mentored young staff like Aisha, launched a scholarship fund, and introduced moments of joy, personalized gestures that defined her brand. Yet she kept her success hidden, her family believing she was drifting, their holiday cards and text Nathan smirks, Evelyn's lectures a constant reminder of their blindness. The turning point came when the Harpers chose the Starlight for their reunion, unaware Emily owned it. Evelyn's text, banning her for being a failure, was the final straw. Emily planned meticulously with her team Rachel, Michael Chen, Diana Torres, censuring every detail, from lavender linens to a rooftop stargazing event, was flawless. At the gala, when Evelyn's complaint about a floral arrangement demanded the owner, Emily stepped forward, declaring, "Welcome to my hotel." The shock Evelyn's ashen face, her parents' trembling hands, her siblings' disbelief was palpable. She didn't seek vengeance but truth, sharing a guest story of hope to underscore her philosophy: hospitality is connection. Her toast to redefining success challenged their values, leaving them silent but stirred. The aftermath was complex. Claire, Ethan, and Nathan sought her out, revealing their own struggles with the Harper mold burnout, emptiness, fractured lives. Her parents apologized, their visit to the Starlight a tentative bridge, though Evelyn's cold letter showed some wounds might not heal. Emily grew beyond their approval, launching Hospitality for All, offering free event spaces to nonprofits and sharing her story publicly. Her My Own Path campaign invited others to redefine success, their stories a chorus of courage. Dinners with Laura, Aisha, and her team became her new family, her gratitude log brimming with love. The lesson from Emily's story is profound. True success is living authentically, not proving your worth to those who can't see it. The Harpers' formula status, wealth left them hollow, while Emily's path, rooted in connection, brought meaning. She didn't need their validation to shine. Her empire was her answer, built not to silence critics but to amplify her truth. This lesson speaks to anyone feeling unseen by family, society, or their own doubts. Success isn't a universal metric. It's the courage to chase what sets your soul alight, whether it's a hotel, a painting, or a quiet act of kindness. For today's audience, applying this means introspection and action. Start by identifying your passion, what makes you feel alive, as Emily's vision board did for her. Write it down, no matter how small it seems. Next, silence the noise, social media comparisons, family expectations, and set one tangible goal toward your dream, like Emily's event planning club. Surround yourself with believers, like her Cornell friends or team, who lift you up. Keep a gratitude log to celebrate small wins, a reminder of your progress. If rejection comes, as it did from Evelyn, let it fuel your resolve, not define you. Finally, give back, as Emily did with Hospitality for All, sharing your light with others. In a world obsessed with metrics, likes, salaries, titles, Emily's story reminds us that the truest success is a life that feels like yours, built with love, purpose, and the courage to be seen. Share your My Own Path, and let your story, like hers, light the way.